Today on Vaping with Thesis, we have got the Ipv V3 Mini. With that said, fuck the small talk, let's go and get up close and personal with it. The Ipv V3 Mini, one of the coolest devices and one of the most frustrating devices all wrapped up into one device. What's going on, guys? Real quick, let's go ahead and take a look at this box. We'll go ahead and talk about the mod in a moment. Bam! I picked this up from elementvapor.com and I think I paid around 70 bucks, full price for it, and I was expecting it to come with a couple of pods, but it did not. It only came with the one. Here's your warranty service card, and then of course you pop this neoprene up, our manual, and then a micro USB, kind of shorter than I would expect for a $70 device. Now the Ipv Manual itself is a little bit frustrating to go through. A couple of things that it does not address, things like resistance, aside from it being printed on the bottom of the RDA. There is a lot of shit to this device that I think they should add. First, I want to address the negative stuff, only because eventually I think I'm gonna win you guys over with this. So a couple of things that I did not like about this device off the bat. I could not figure out a way how to turn it off. It's just strictly always in standby mode if it's in your pocket. The way you lock it is 1, 2, 3, locked. 1, 2, 3, unlocked, and that's literally it. The kit itself only comes with one pod. I wish it would come with both the 1 ohm and the 0.3 ohm. The one that this one came with is the 0.3 ohm right there. You can see it's kind of got some pock marks at the bottom from my knife. I was trying to pop this thing open just because I was curious on whether or not I could rebuild it or hack it. Now the bottom portion right here where the reservoir is, I did not like in the beginning. It took me a solid 30-35 minutes to actually get the pump to work, and that was because I had previous experience with pumps, not with auto squonking, not in vaping, but with water pumps, fuel pumps, where you do need to prime the pump before it actually pumps liquid in and through the system. Luckily, I just had to figure out that I had to prime it, so that didn't happen. It is an extremely unique feeling device. It feels quality. Paint itself is actually pretty durable despite this big chunk that's missing. I'll explain that in a moment. It's one of the most unique feeling devices I've ever felt. Its thin profile gives you this weird illusion that it's tiny, but in reality, it's not that small. Take a look at something like the .mod.aio that I just recently reviewed, and it's about the same size. In fact, this one might be a little bit wider. Yeah, and it feels 10 times smaller for whatever reason. It's actually wider than the .mod. It's a little bit thinner. You see the thinness, but it's about the same footprint. And again, this one, for whatever reason, feels so much more clunky. It feels way bigger in comparison to this. And this is rocking a giant reservoir of 3.5 milliliters, and it's also got a fucking pump. The fact that there's a 1400 milliamp hour battery inside there on top of that, they're doing something good. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. It's kind of an X factor that I'm really digging. But whatever it is, I hope that they keep doing it, especially if they blow this mod up to a much larger size. One of the first things I noticed about the device is this ADA. It's called an ADA. I'm assuming it's an automatic dripping atomizer. That's the only thing I could think of that it stands for. At the bottom, it looks like a 510 thread, but I do not believe it to be. Let's go and test that theory out. Just because I was looking at this in comparison. Yeah, it does not look the same depth. It's a lot wider. This is a lot thinner, so this is not a 510 threaded device. So you will have to use their proprietary ADAs. Something that, of course, I think is, I wish that they didn't do that. I wish this was a bigger device and you could put whatever RDA you want, especially if it's squonk ready. Throw that bitch on there and be good to go. But nope, they're going to end up by taking your money by only using their proprietary version. This is the first time I've seen a connector that's not a 510, but that's a 510 styled, if that makes sense. They could have easily used a 510 deck, yet they did not. I'm thinking A, because of the money, they're going to get your money by you buying the ADAs, that I think they wanted to have something that's separate just for pod system only fans, basically. This is as small as a pod system, and it works essentially the same way in terms of airflow, having an extremely tight MTL and also a looser DL adjustment airflow setting. Now, I was talking about the paint earlier. The paint's actually more durable than you think. I actually tried to scrape the bottom of this, and it's pretty fucking difficult. You can see a little bit come up, but I've done that like 3 or 4 times now, and that's the first time the bottom is scratched. This portion is only scratched because I tried to take this plastic chimney off, and as I did that, I kind of scraped it when I was doing that. Only reason why I didn't succeed in taking this top chimney off was only because I didn't want to break the coil, because this is the only one I have. And for 70 bucks, I didn't want to buy a whole new pack of coils, not knowing whether or not I liked it. I'm sure that there's a way that you can hack this. I'm actually kind of curious of whether or not I can do that. If it's possible, I'll definitely make a follow-up video. Now, one of the first issues I had with this device, like I said earlier, it simply would not pump the liquid up and through the system. It needed to be primed, so what I ended up by doing, I took my liquid, which happens to be the pod juice. This is the nectar, one of my favorite liquids by them. I set it right there on top, and I just kind of pushed the bottom button at the same time and shoved the liquid down into the system. That actually cleared everything up. Once that liquid was inside of that bar right here that you see in the bottom, it sucked the liquid up, and it also brought the liquid to the RDA, or to the ADA. So with that said, make sure you keep that in mind. It's not a big deal. It's just one of those things where if you don't know, it can be frustrating. But I'm extremely excited about this device in it being an electronic pump that's doing the squawking for you. I think it's a super cool feature that I've never seen before. Granted, I'm sure it's not the first one, but it's the first one I've ever used. Hit the power on. I'm going to push up on the positive button, and that's going to manually squawk the device. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in quick so you guys can see it a little bit better. Push and hold the positive button. See if we can't over squawk it. There, you can see it fill up to the brim. I'm going to hit the minus button and see it squawk all of that back into the reservoir. That is so fucking cool. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take a hit with the fire button, even though it's a little bit oversaturated. I do have this set to a pretty high rate of squonking at 40. Absolutely phenomenal. This little device is so surprising in terms of the flavor. I don't know how many renditions they went through with these ADAs, but whatever it's at, it's perfect for this size factor. I can't wait for there to be a bigger one. I would rather use a bigger one, especially in terms of using my own RDAs as opposed to their ADAs. So I'm looking at the top. One of the worst parts about the ADAs is this drip tip. This is non-removable. So if you have this adjusted, say halfway or even a little bit less to get a good MTL, one of the problems I ran into is every time I went to take a puff, the pressure from my mouth would actually adjust this, especially when there's a little bit of liquid inside of there and on those O-rings, this becomes extremely loose. Take a look at that. Back and forth, no problem. It's just basically a loose condom. It's fucking terrible. It's hot dog in a hallway. I would just keep this thing wide open and not have to worry about it. So if I was you, if you're getting this for an MTL, if you're getting this to use as a pod system with salts, for example, this is not the device for you until they have ADAs that are a little bit more figured out than this one is. So it's one of those things where it says it can do both, but in reality, it's not really a good pod system in my opinion. To me, this is more of a small, shrunk down version of the bigger variation of what the better version would be, which is going to be the full scale or the larger size. Now, if you take a look on the inside, this is a horizontal coil that is separated. It's not like a micro coil. It's not anything fancy. There's no aliens. It's just a regular ass Kanthal as far as I know. Or stainless steel because it is temp controlled. But if you take a look there, bam. Hits that shit beautifully. Now, in terms of settings with this bad boy, what I have it at, for me, seems to be about the best setting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to get you into the adjustments. Clicking the fire button is going to scroll through all the settings. So right here, 400 degrees Fahrenheit. If you click the positive button right there, you're going to get Celsius. I'm going to keep it at Fahrenheit. P2 is going to be the higher wattage. That's going to be for your 0.3 ohm atomizer. 2 to 30 watts in the P2. The P1 is going to be 1 to 15 watts. That's where you're going to want to stay with the 1 ohm version of this ADA. So let's go and take a hit. You can hear the difference between P1 and P2. Here's P1. A little more wispy, not enough power. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Get into the P2. That's going to be a much more powerful range, and that's going to be dependent also on what temperature you have it set at. P2 should adjust closer to 30. Let's go and take a listen. Much more dense in terms of flavor as well as vapor production. So if you want to manually squonk this bad boy, the way that you would do that is hit the positive button when it's in standby mode with the lights on. Hit that and you can see it come up to the top. Auto squonk down, meaning you're going to want to take liquid out of the chamber, push the bottom button, the minus button, and it's going to suck it back down. Now it is auto squonking, so every time you take a fire, it actually pumps liquid onto that coil, so you shouldn't get a dry hit basically ever. Once you do run out of liquid, it will say no liquid, it'll just keep pumping. Fill that bad boy up and you'll be ready to go again. Now, the way that you would adjust the rate of squonking is you just push up or down and you see a number pop up over here. So the highest, I think it goes at 60. Let's go ahead and see that. 60, I'm not sure what unit that is, but 60 is the fastest that it'll squonk. So it'll pump liquid up as quickly as possible. And then if you bring it all the way down to, I keep it around 40. 40 seems to be about just right, but it goes all the way down to what, 15, something like that? 15 is the slowest that it's going to pump. Now, I wouldn't use 15 at all, and I wouldn't use 60 at all just because I don't want it to be over squonked or under squonked either. Again, like I said, between 35 and 40 seems to be about the sweet spot, at least for where I'm vaping. I'm gonna keep it at 40. And of course, when you're adjusting the squonk speed or the feed speed, it's adjusting for when you're hitting the fire button. Bitch, it's okay, mother truckers. Now, overall, I dig the way that this thing feels. I think it's one of the best feeling devices I've had in my hands since probably the Cold Steel. This thing in the hand feels phenomenal. This thing in the hand feels phenomenal. In comparison, pure aesthetics, and in terms of just the way it feels in the hands, ergonomics and whatnot, this thing cannot be beat, in my opinion, by any other pod system in existence. It feels so fucking good. It's hard to explain. And believe me, I wish that this V3 performed as well as it feels. I'm definitely going to keep this in my pocket for a little while to see where it goes. Bitch, it's okay, mother truckers. Now, with that being said, let's go and get back to regular views, son. My final summation is this: the Ipv Mini V3, in my humble opinion, it's fucking interesting. It's super interesting, only because I've never had a device like this that's got a pump in it, which could be a downside and an upside depending on how you look at it. So look, $70 seems a little bit steep to me, even though that the way it feels is also super unique. It's one of the thinnest feeling mods I've ever used, and for whatever reason, in the hand, that thin heftiness feels so fucking high quality that I can't even put it into words. But of course, I still got gripes with it, and we can't overlook those. The biggest problem for me is the fact that it's not universal. Any device in this day and age that doesn't use a 510 thread kind of feels like it's harkening back to the past. They want you to use their specific ADAs, which I understand. Pod systems do the same thing, but at the same time, it'd be kind of disingenuous to say that this is a pod system. It's really not. It's basically a dripper that drips for you, but we already have that, and that's squonks. What is the benefit of it auto squonking? The fact that you're not going to get any dry hits. You don't have to think about it. Anything that I've got to do less of, and I still get the performance of when I think about it, that's a positive to me. So the fact that this even exists, the fact that this was thought about, the fact that this was was innovated to me is a positive thing. I just want to see this on a bigger platform with the universal 510 thread. It's as simple as that. The fact that I can't turn it off is a negative. The fact that I can't use a 510 threaded RDA is a negative. And of course, the fact that I had to sit there for 30 minutes to figure out how to get the pump working, that shit kind of sucked. Especially if you're not used to using a pump, it's one of those things that could easily be frustrating for a beginner. I still recommend this device because I think that this is going to be a dope thing to see in the future, especially with its successor, which is going to be a full size. I'm almost positive about it. Now, the downsides, even though there's a list of them, it's still worth picking up in my opinion. The only downside about the ADA is, again, you can adjust it on accident just with the pressure of your lips, especially once liquid gets on those O-rings. Take a look. It goes from full wide open to literally nothing in an instant. Now, I know I was being a little bit dramatic by moving the hand. At the same time, as soon as you pick it up like this, move it just a millimeter and that's enough. You do that 2 or 3 times and it's completely closed. I keep this one basically wide open. I've tried it with MTL. It's not that great with an MTL, though I wish that the 1 ohm was a lot smaller, had a lot smaller airflow holes, but it's not, and it's not that big of a deal. The noise that the airflow holes make is a little bit more annoying than I want to hear. It's something that's kind of loud. I'm not used to that. I do prefer something of this size, especially, to be a lot more quiet than it is. Now, my Thesis' patented finger cock milliscale, innovation-wise, I think this is a really important device. I think it's a solid 7.5, 8.5, getting up there. The fact that it exists, I like it. But overall, in terms of performance, if 5 is average or 5 is like a C, I would say this is probably a solid 7.5, C+, B-. Bitch, it's okay, mother truckers. Now, with that said, make sure to consider joining the Patreon page. I am an independent reviewer. I do not get paid for good reviews or for bad reviews for that matter. So with that said, any bit helps. This is my job. This is not just a hobby of mine. It is a passion. Okay, it's mother truckers. Now, with that being said, I want to tell y'all that I appreciate y'all for vaping with Thesis. It is your boy Thesis. I'm out.